คุณภูเขาทะเลที่พาให้เราได้มาพบกันจนเราผูกพันกันมาแสนนานกี่พันปัญหาใดๆที่เราร่วมกันก้าวผ่านจนวันนี้ล้อมรวมเป็นหนึ่งเดียวพวกเราร่วมกันเป็นผู้เดินนำการท่องเที่ยวจนก้าวไกลมือทั้งสองคอยโอบประคองให้บ้านชื่อไทยสุขใจหนึ่งรอยยิ้มของใครก็มีความหมายทำให้พวกเรายังก้าวไปด้วยหัวใจสื่อตรงที่จะทำดีหนึ่งรอยยิ้มของใครก็ดูยิ่งใหญ่เตือนให้พวกเราได้เข้าใจว่าเพื่อใครที่ฉันต้องดูแลบ้านของเราให้ดีพวกเราร่วมกันเป็นผู้เดินนำการท่องเที่ยวจนก้าวไกลมือทั้งสองคอยโอบประคองให้บ้านชื่อไทยสุขใจหนึ่งรอยยิ้มของใครก็มีความหมายทำให้พวกเรายังก้าวไปด้วยหัวใจสื่อตรงที่จะทำดีหนึ่งรอยยิ้มของใครก็ดูยิ่งใหญ่เตือนให้พวกเราได้เข้าใจว่าเพื่อใครที่ฉันต้องดูแลบ้านของเราให้ดีเป็นผู้เดินนำการท่องเที่ยวจนก้าวไกลมือทั้งสองคอยโอบประคองให้บ้านชื่อไทยสุขใจหนึ่งรอยยิ้มของใครก็มีความหมายทำให้พวกเรายิ่งก้าวไปด้วยหัวใจสื่อตรงที่จะทำดีหนึ่งรอยยิ้มของใครก็ดูยิ่งใหญ่เตือนให้พวกเราได้เข้าใจว่าเพื่อใครที่ฉันต้องดูแลบ้านของเราให้ดีจะทุ่มเทตลอดไปเพราะเมืองไทยคือหัวใจของเราขอบคุณภูเขาทะเลที่พาให้เราได้มาพบกันจนเราผูกพันกันมาแสนนานกี่พันปัญหาใดๆที่เราร่วมกันก้าวผ่านจนวันนี้ล้อมรวมเป็นหนึ่งเดียวพวกเราร่วมกันเป็นผู้เดินนำการท่องเที่ยวจนก้าวไกลมือทั้งสองคอยโอบประคองให้บ้านชื่อไทยสุขใจหนึ่งรอยยิ้มของใครก็มีความหมายทำให้พวกเรายังก้าวไปด้วยหัวใจสื่อตรงที่ คุณภูเขาทะเลที่พาให้เราได้มาพบกันจนเราผูกพันกันมาแสนนานกี่พันปัญหาใดๆที่เราร่วมกันก้าวผ่านจนวันนี้ล้อมรวมเป็นหนึ่งเดียวพวกเราร่วมกันเป็นผู้เดินนำการท่องเที่ยวจนก้าวไกลมือทั้งสองคอยโอบประคองให้บ้านชื่อไทยสุขใจหนึ่งรอยยิ้มของใครก็มีความหมายทำให้พวกเรายังก้าวไปด้วยหัวใจสื่อตรงที่จะทำดีหนึ่งรอยยิ้มของใครก็ดูยิ่งใหญ่เตือนให้พวกเราได้เข้าใจว่าเพื่อใครที่ฉันต้องดูแลบ้านของเราให้ดีพวกเราร่วมกันเป็นผู้เดินนำการท่องเที่ยวจนก้าวไกลมือทั้งสองคอยโอบประคองให้บ้านชื่อไทยสุขใจหนึ่งรอยยิ้มของใครก็มีความหมายทำให้พวกเรายังก้าวไปด้วยหัวใจสื่อตรงที่จะทำดีหนึ่งรอยยิ้มของใครก็ดูยิ่งใหญ่เตือนให้พวกเราได้เข้าใจว่าเพื่อใครที่ฉันต้องดูแลบ้านของเราให้ดีกันเป็นผู้เดินนำการท่องเที่ยวจนก้าวไกลมือทั้งสองคอยโอบประคองให้บ้านชื่อไทยสุขใจหนึ่งรอยยิ้มของใครก็มีความหมายทำให้พวกเรายังก้าวไปด้วยหัวใจสื่อตรงที่จะทำดีหนึ่งรอยยิ้มของใครก็ดูยิ่งใหญ่เตือนให้พวกเราได้เข้าใจว่าเพื่อใครที่ฉันต้องดูแลบ้านของเราให้ดีจะทุ่มเทตลอดไปเพราะเมืองไทยคือหัวใจของเราขอบคุณภูเขาทะเลที่พาให้เราได้มาพบกันจนเราผูกพันกันมาแสนนานกี่พันปัญหาใดๆที่เราร่วมกันก้าวผ่านจนวันนี้ล้อมรวมเป็นหนึ่งเดียวพวกเราร่วมกันเป็นผู้เดินนำการท่องเที่ยวจนก้าวไกล
I see new horizons are opening up new feelings. I feel great in every moment when I see the world around me. It makes me
Open to the new shades. Amazing Thailand. Good evening to you. Sawadee krap. My name is Victor Spisak, and I'm with Tourism Authority of Thailand office in Toronto, Canada. On behalf of our entire TAT team, I would like to thank you for joining us this Friday night, and we hope that this, as well as other webinar sessions, will be interesting and will provide you with essential information as we all plan for post-COVID recovery. I would like to address several technical notes before we begin. During the session, you can ask your questions to speakers using Q&A button, the icon on the top of your screen in case if you are on a smartphone, or on the left of your screen if you're on desktop or laptop. If you have any inquiries and would like to speak to our team, event team, please use the chat box function, which is on the right-hand side of your screen. North American market is an important source of inbound travelers to Thailand. And there are many concerns and uncertainties related to this specific market, as well as to the path that the market may be going through as we come out of this first and hopefully last COVID-19 wave. We believe that our today's experts and speakers will shed some light on the subject by sharing some trends of consumer behavior, sentiments, dreaming and planning stages, as well as future forecast for the bookings. Tonight, our topic is impact and recovery strategies for COVID-19 with Tripadvisor. And one of our long-standing partners, Tripadvisor America's office, is joining this session tonight to share some USA and Canada market insights. It is my great pleasure to introduce Stephen Paganelli, who is head of for America's market in Tripadvisor, and his colleague, Carol Johnson, who is a senior client principal partner at Tripadvisor. Good morning, Stephen, and good morning, Carol. Welcome.
Thank you, and good morning, and good evening to everyone on the call.
Well, I believe it's early morning where you're right now, right?
A little bit early.
Thank you again for sparing this time with us. And now I would like to turn this session to you. Please proceed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, hello, and thank you for joining today's Tourism Authority of Thailand webinar with Tripadvisor. There's good out there. As Victor said, I'm Steve Paganelli, and I lead the destination marketing team for Tripadvisor for the Americas, where our work is exclusively focused on supporting the needs of destinations. I'm joined by Carol Johnson, who manages our work with Thailand out of the Americas, along with her counterparts in Asia Pacific and Europe. I'd also like to note that this presentation will be available to all registered participants after the webinar. Tripadvisor is embedded in the travel industry, and our long-standing relationship with our partners and travelers has been built on 20 years of trust. While no one knows exactly when this pandemic will end, or even quite what normalcy will mean when it does, one thing we do know is that travelers will turn to Tripadvisor and our destination partners like the Tourism Authority of Thailand, and we'll be there to guide them together to amazing Thailand. In light of the astounding ways in which COVID-19 continues to impact individuals, businesses, and communities, today we'll share some of our latest insights. These insights are designed to marry consumer and traveler intent with their actual behaviors. Said another way, what they tell us with what they're actually doing. Representing the various sectors of the travel industry in Thailand, we'll also share steps Tripadvisor is taking to support businesses so you can leverage them for yourselves. As we're all looking for things we can do now, Carol will also share 3 free features on Tripadvisor to connect with prospective travelers. And finally, we see it on TV, we hear it on podcasts, and we're living it within our own homes and neighborhoods. There is good out there, and Carol will share travel industry examples from around the globe. So with that, let's dive in. Some of you may have joined Tripadvisor's webinar series in which we presented a 3-stage approach for destinations and travel providers: react, rethink, recover. And as we began to better understand this pandemic, our team outlined 5 phases we think apply to our industry as a whole. We can all probably agree that we've been deep in the decline phase, but this pandemic has largely traveled east to west, with those countries first impacted now moving into phases 3 and 4. Recent developments here in the US and Canada suggest we have one foot remaining in phase 2, while the other is in phase 3. International travel, unfortunately, remains the big question mark, and we'll look at some data that may hint at the course its recovery will take. Keeping with our theme, the good news is that travelers haven't lost their desire to travel. Like many of us, it's just hibernating. Or is it? Nearly all respondents to our weekly travel intent survey indicate comfort traveling domestically within 6 months of some form of containment. That might be declining cases, lifting of restrictions, etc. Even more encouraging is that 2/3 indicate a willingness to travel within 2 months. Take note, though, I mentioned we'll be marrying what travelers say with what they do, and this will be one to watch as we go through the data this morning. As for international travel, an overwhelming majority indicate comfort in traveling within 6 months, suggesting that Thailand may begin to see more significant signs of recovery in US and Canadian visitation in October and November. But this is also the data that has been most varied among the different studies that I've seen. Response is somewhat more tepid for international travel within 2 months of containment, as virtually everyone agrees treatment or a vaccine are the fastest way to return to more historic travel levels. So where are we today? This data from last week represents some of the more consistent areas of positivity. In this case, increases in travel search that we're seeing on Tripadvisor. Outside of minimal dips in Canada and Brazil week over week, markets throughout the Americas are trending upward in the last week, and we're seeing similar totals in those parts of Asia that were affected earliest. Russia is the one anomaly, given rising incidence of COVID-19 there over the past 1 to 2 weeks. And when consumers do start to travel, the encouraging news for Thailand is that it over-indexes for many of those same trip types travelers cite as being of greatest interest: relaxation and beach holidays, with culture and history not too far behind. Contrary to some of the data I've seen, Tripadvisor travelers, who comprise approximately 70% of all global travelers, still indicate strong interest in city exploration, but less interest in large crowds of concerts and festivals. And despite indicators that the outdoors will be a key focus, and we keep hearing that many of us have explored new things while under quarantine, it does not seem we've suddenly all become backpackers. Turning to booking trends, specifically those for which travelers are narrowing in on specifics and entering travel dates, North American travelers are currently contemplating overnight stays internationally for late September, which has important implications in developing timing for recovery strategies for your own businesses and destinations. Understandably, that 134 days is a significant 71 days longer than this time last year, as travelers indicate doing more in-depth research in planning their trips. They're going to be far more careful about the decisions they make and the choices. So let's look more specifically at trends impacting Thailand, starting with US travelers. For April 2020, Thailand received 1.48% of US international traffic on Tripadvisor, increasing 18% versus March. And while still down since January, it shows clear movement in the right direction. In more positive news, Thailand's share of US international flight searches increased by a massive 80% versus March and 49% versus the January through March 2020 average. Equally impressive is that Thailand's share of US international flight searches to Asia Pacific overall increased by double digits, up 34% versus March. US users are planning trips to Thailand about 5.5 months in advance, which supports that likelihood noted earlier for arrivals to begin rebounding in September. As we shift to Canadian travelers, for April 2020, Thailand received 1.19% of Canada's international traffic. That is, all Canadians looking at any non-Canadian destination on Tripadvisor. In another example of the good out there, Thailand's share of Canadian international traffic increased by 68% versus March and was up 48% versus the January through March 2020 average. In similar good news, Thailand's share of Canadian international flight searches increased by a massive 89% versus March and was plus 71% versus that January through March 2020 rolling average. Thailand's share of Canadian international flight searches to Asia Pacific also increased by double digits, up 13% versus March. Canadian users, however, are giving themselves more time to plan trips to Thailand, Asia Pacific, and internationally in general. Of some concern, though, is the significant increase, plus 190 days to nearly 10 months for Canadians, specifically considering Thailand, more than double the length for other Asia Pacific destinations. This suggests an opportunity that they need to be further convinced upon the value and potentially safety of visiting Thailand in these coming months ahead. Tripadvisor Forums are the place travelers turn for input from other travelers on travel they're considering. And activity there has been steady throughout COVID-19. Travelers are sharing their experiences, asking whether to cancel, seeking deals, and inquiring about practical logistical information, like getting from Salaya to Ratchaburi. They're asking about whether to extend a trip by traveling from Phuket to Bangkok and recommending local experiences for those who may be visiting particular areas. Since February, the most popular keywords in forum topic titles primarily skewed towards major Thai cities, with Corona also making the top 5. So let's turn now to Tripadvisor's industry support. Since the start of the pandemic, Tripadvisor has been acutely aware of the impact on its partners who cross virtually all sectors of the travel industry. Since that time, we've worked with the industry and industry associations to implement strategies to help. And we review them here today for the benefit of local businesses in Thailand who may be able to take advantage of them. As one of the largest group of partners on Tripadvisors, we've rolled out numerous efforts to help out during these times of record-breaking low occupancies and temporary closures. Among the first of these to roll out in mid-March is the ability for businesses, hotels, attractions, and restaurants to mark themselves as closed, and if applicable, to showcase their targeted reopening dates. This can now be managed by the business itself directly within your management center. As hospital workers found themselves unable to get home, we've also launched a hotel and hospital matching program to connect underutilized hotel inventory with healthcare workers in need. If you see opportunities within your own destination, I encourage you to outreach as we look for more communities to bring this service to. Perhaps most significant for the lodging community has been the near complete shutoff of incoming revenues. Recognizing these challenges, hotels can extend and defer current invoices and have also been offered 1 month of free sponsored placements in the most severely impacted markets. Among the hardest hit categories is the restaurant community. And Tripadvisor answered the call with nearly a dozen initiatives, including no-cost, cost-per-click campaigns around the world, and free subscriptions from our premium and review hub offerings. To promote these initiatives, Tripadvisor launched the hashtag #LoveYourLocal campaign, which includes $1 million in donations to small businesses. Singapore became a destination partner for this program there. And recognizing the plight of restaurant workers, we also made $150,000 in contributions from our charitable foundation to the World Central Kitchen and Restaurant Worker Community Foundation. The attractions and experience sector is the lifeblood of many destinations, contributing significantly to the sense of place that distinguishes them. Here too, a variety of solutions have been implemented to help. Among the most notable is our #RoamFromHome campaign, which features over 100 and growing commission-free offers, the creation of virtual tours, and promoting both of those things to travelers themselves. And perhaps most critical to the many mom and pop operators of these experiences was the rollout of faster payment solutions to help get cash in their hands when they need it most. Last but not least is an even more flexible cancellation policy that allows travelers to book risk-free, thus encouraging future travel planning now. Consumers are, of course, vital to us all, and Tripadvisor has been sure to include them in supporting these initiatives. By celebrating and sharing stories of the good out there on site, through email, and to our millions of social followers. We've also encouraged travelers to put their review writing skills to work for their favorite hometown businesses. I encourage all of you to do the same. In addition to the $1 million small business support, Tripadvisor established a $1 million relief fund supporting organizations like the International Rescue Committee and Mercy Corps, which are supporting some of the most vulnerable populations globally. And for the industry as a whole, we've undertaken a series of steps to strengthen the industry at large. From weekly insights from our own research and that of our partners, allowing you to keep a finger on the pulse of traveler trends and intentions, to our two-part webinar series that attracted over 8,000 global participants. If you missed it, please let me know and we'll send you the recordings. As you can see, we've been busy despite the near complete halt to travel. And we're continuing to expand on these things as we prepare for the inevitably brighter days ahead. And now I'm delighted to turn things over to my colleague, Carol Johnson.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you again for joining us. This part of the session will talk about actions that you can take as stakeholders in tourism to do on Tripadvisor now. From day one, travelers have turned to Tripadvisor to connect and share. It started with our very first hotel review in the year 2000. With COVID slowing down travel, our travelers have turned to our forums. The forums are friendly, interactive discussion areas where members can ask for and share their personal opinions, advice, and experiences as travelers. On the forums, travelers look for topics of interest by using the search feature located at the top of the board. This function allows travelers to see if a question has already been asked or answered. And finally, if you don't find the answers that you were looking for, you can actually go in and start your own topic. Posting a new topic is the way for you to interact with fellow travelers and our destination experts. On the right rail is a sampling of our current destination experts for Thailand. These experts are members who volunteer their time to assist visitors like everyone who attends, and they've been selected for their demonstrated knowledge about Thailand and helpful participation on Tripadvisor. The current destination experts have over 13,000 posts each. Next slide. When looking at our most recent sentiments on Thailand in April and May, we've illustrated the intent to travel, and the green shoots are prevalent by travelers around the world. On May 5th alone, there were nearly 10 topics that were added to the forum. A traveler planning a 3-week trip with his girlfriend is the one that comes most positively out of all of these. After our forums, a second way for you to participate and action on Tripadvisor is through our travel feed. During this pandemic, technology has supported us, whether it be business or personal, with the likes of Zoom, House Party, webinars. All of this technology is connecting us. And the brilliant use of all of this technology has allowed us to hone in on the travel feed. Do you remember a few weeks ago or a month ago on April 10th? That was the day when spectacular scenes around the world spotlighted the historic buildings, major sports stadiums and events, and national landmarks, including Singapore and Orlando. This was a show of gratitude for healthcare workers and professionals and first responders that were essential workers caring for people on the front lines during COVID-19. A giant hug was given to the world. Add your news to the travel feed. In addition to your news, there is new technology such as virtual vacations or videos. And here is an example of a Sunday sunset over Darwin's Nightcliff Beach. I've seen virtual reality videos as well. It is the next best thing to being there and very inspirational. 3 ideas as destination marketers are examples of what Thailand can do on the world's largest travel platform. Are you ready for a laugh? That sheep on the right-hand side says, when you are ready to say hello, our sheep are ready to greet you whenever you can travel again. Here are 3 tips on building your content on your feed. Use humor or videos such as the sheep's. Add a link back to your website and tag your local businesses. See Healy Pass in this Ireland example? You can add up to 10 tags for each post that you post on Tripadvisor. Thirdly are our reviews. Tripadvisor users have gone from sharing what they love about traveling in their own travels to also supporting their local businesses in their own backyard. Take this opportunity to not only encourage promotion or encourage posting of reviews from previous travelers, but also from the travelers now and the locals that are supporting your local businesses and caring to show the love. Those are our 3 actions that you can take on Tripadvisor. As Steve mentioned, we have One Foot in Recovery, and this part of the presentation is where we will review the moments of recovering as our country and the world begins our various phases of reopening. One definite part of our time is that we are always learning. So let's take a look at how other DMOs and stakeholders around the world are emerging and talking to travelers on Tripadvisor. We're on the road to recovery, and thanks to Yahoo just yesterday, the demand restart and the domestic buying signals for Thailand and Asia are building. And now that we are in the month of May, within the United States and North America, summer vacation planning is in full swing and action. Next up is Utah. A domestic state within the United States, the domestic buying signals for the summer continues. What I especially like about this one example is the images of using families outdoors, socially distant. And let's not forget the selfie here. We are all marketers, and all marketers are astute and pay attention to detail. If you have paid attention to detail, you will see the big, bold, and new use of Tripadvisor's image and branding that we just unveiled this past week. There's good out there all around the world, whether it be the Hawaiian Islands, Asia Pacific and Guam, or McDonald's around the world. People are looking to escape. They want to escape home. They want wide open spaces. They want spaces where they can have peace, where they can replenish, where they can have peace without humanity, without news, and experience travel and humanity at its best. Moving into the future, prior to COVID-19, Tripadvisor had very big plans to celebrate our 20th anniversary. And part of what you're seeing is our Good Out There campaign. However, much like all businesses around the world, including Thailand, we had to pivot. As the future unfolds for us and the industry, we do know that new times are ahead of us, and it will require all of us to take on new roles and new marketing as one specific part of tourism. And the biggest part about all of it out there is that there is good out there. In closing, Steve summarized where we are at in the 5 particular stages of recovery or of the COVID virus. First was the decline. Now we have people that have left the decline, and most countries are now dreaming. Secondly, many markets, including the US states and cities and North America, are beginning to research again. And while many markets haven't considered how to emerge, they are thinking about domestic travel in their own backyard. And we do see those green sprouts of international travel through our forums, through our reviews, and through our community on Tripadvisor. Here are 4 actions for you to consider. Let me preface this with not all marketing plans are created equal, and with today's environment, there are many variables that can affect this. Our 4 tips to share with you are for now and into the future. We see intent and we see travelers' behavior all pointing to planning vacations. Number 1, leverage broad targeting to capture demand for Thailand. Number 2, focus on your best prospect out there. There are those passionate scuba divers, the frequent travelers around the world, and those that are planning that bucket list travel or once-in-a-lifetime trip. Thirdly, consider offers and capture the sale now should they be ready. Demand will return, and remember to keep your efforts in the full area of the funnel. Remember to advertise in all parts of the traveler's path to purchase, but especially the upper funnel that will ensure a healthy pipeline to your future of travel to Thailand. Thank you for joining us this evening. We understand it's a time of uncertainty, and we are here to support you in whatever way we can. We know travelers and our partners are resilient and passionate. We are confident that the industry will rebound, and given our travelers' undeniable passion, we will be back to where we were, however, in a new world. We look forward to getting back to guiding travelers to all the good out there one day soon.
Thank you, Stevens. Thank you, Carol. Very, very optimistic and inspiring presentation. Thank you for that. I'm sure we got quite a lot of questions. I just wanted to quickly summarize before we transit to our questions from the audience. So it looks like, yes, there is a huge traffic of the users who are now researching the opportunities to Thailand, specifically in the US and Canada. But the big difference is the advance booking, of course, right? The Canadians are actually spending way more time to book, to plan. I mean, to schedule their trip in the future. So in this situation, when there is such a great traffic and so much noise on the platform, people are actually probably talking and researching and looking for the future trip. Is it a good idea for our suppliers in Thailand to sort of drop special offers and very, very significantly discounted offers, or should they continue providing the content to inspire, to help them dream, to help them sort of plan and envision themselves in the destination? Or should they actually go into the very aggressive sales strategy?
Carol, I see you eager to answer that.
Thank you. It relates a bit back to the 4 tips that we gave. And specifically, consumers are planning and researching more than ever. However, there are some that are looking in the very near future, and then some looking as far out as 2021, 2022. So what we do is we encourage you to have a little of both. Have that inspirational, feel good, make consumers and travelers feel relaxed, but also don't hesitate to put an offer out there on the various pages when they are looking and researching for hotels and things to do, so that you can capture them when they're ready to buy.
Yeah, I think to follow up on Carol's comments, which were exactly what I was going to say, actually, there are really good indicators that travelers do want to hear from travel providers right now. A popular travel discount newsletter here in the Americas and in the UK surveyed 2,500 of their subscribers to ask when they wanted to start receiving offers again. And overwhelmingly, I think the number is like 97% responded now. So I think that you want to keep one foot still in focusing on that inspirational content that helps get Thailand and the various parts of Thailand onto the consideration list. But you want to do it still in a non-aggressive way. And I think to Carol's point, you want to give them reasons to be thinking about visiting, maybe not right now, but sooner than they may be thinking. So what are those triggers? What are those once in a lifetime experiences that maybe if they don't come in September, they'll never have an opportunity to do again? And really be emphasizing some of those kinds of things coupled with offers and that make it easier for them to make that choice or that decision.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So I would like to check with our team if we got questions to ask our speakers. I believe we do have some questions, and there are some very popular questions right now with many votes. So we'll probably begin with the very first question that actually received 14 votes right now. And okay, so let's see the question number 1. I wonder, my screen for some reason is very tiny. Can you enlarge it for me? Because I can't even read that. I'm sorry.
I can jump in if you like. I actually am able to see it.
Because my screen is so small here.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay, I can see it now. When will Americans and Canadians start traveling again? Oh, that's $1 million question, right? I mean, if we knew that, would be, we would be really very much well equipped with the strategies. But let's try to answer this as much as we can.
Yeah, I think as we talked about, I think there's going to be phases to this. So we're already seeing lots of signs in the US, a little bit further ahead than Canada, of this pent-up demand and people traveling locally and getting out of their homes. Because if you think about it, here in the US and in much of Canada, people have largely been confined to their homes for the last about 6 to 8 weeks now. So what we've been seeing just in the last weekend is parts of the US opening up and travelers venturing to the next town or a few towns away. And I think we'll be in that phase for a bit. What we've also seen, again, an indicator of when Americans and Canadians will start traveling is that they tell us they're spending on average 5 hours a week planning travel. So all of that time stuck at home, we're spending a lot of it. Yes, we're watching, streaming television and things like that, but a lot of it we're also spending on dreaming, thinking, and planning for travel. We actually, Carol and I have a colleague who, most of our colleagues are travel buffs, but she's a particular travel buff. And she was so stressed out that she had no trip on her calendar that she went ahead and booked rooms in Australia. She has no idea if she can get there, how she'll get there, but just that act of making a definitive statement that I'm going to travel, in this case, I think it was for September, has given her comfort. And I think that she is really indicative of a large portion of the traveling public in the US and in Canada. But as we talked about during the presentation, for a significant return from Americans and Canadians, it does seem that we're looking at that September through November timeframe when you'll really start to begin to see numbers begin to rebound, and probably still not rebound to last September's levels, unfortunately, but you'll begin to see those arrival rates start to return.
And if I may add another data point to that, in regards to search. Obviously, everyone is aware of search, whether it be on the internet or internally on Tripadvisor. And for the past 3 weeks, we have seen double-digit growth in search for domestic travel within the North American audience. So specifically higher with Americans, double-digit growth on search outside of their own specific area and for domestic travel. So that is the first phase and the first very green sign that we see.
Yeah, that's very true. Thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Carol. I agree with you. Speaking of Canada, we do get a lot of people who are dreaming, who are researching, who are very anxious about going, who are scared if they don't have anything booked in advance. Like you, Stephen, said, this is called tripophobia or something like that. So they are willing to travel, and we know that domestic will rebound. We are blessed with a lot of domestic destinations here as well as in the United States. But of course, people are looking forward. And there are so many variables into this equation, right? With the airfares, with airline seat capacity, with the protocols in place by the immigration in different countries. So it's very hard to predict, but like you said, September, October, maybe into the winter would be the time when there will be significant sign, right? That's what you're trying to say, probably, yeah?
Exactly.
And then one other thing to relate back to what the second portion of the seminar had today was what you can do on Tripadvisor. I highly encourage everyone to look at the forums and to pay attention to that so you can see what they are talking about and what is top of mind. It's not only sentiment, but it's also going to describe the behavior of travelers at the point in time because it's dated.
Okay, Carol, thank you. Let's move to the next. I'm sure we have quite a lot of other questions here. So if our team can show us some other questions, popular questions that have been asked by the audience. So I do see there is a question with 15 votes. If you could zoom it in a little bit. Okay, 16 votes now.
Do you see a trend in increasing lead times for travel to Thailand for both the US market and Canadian market?
And we absolutely do. By a little over 2 months longer than usual for Americans, and significantly more than that, as we talked about, as much as 10 months longer for Canadians. And I think that one of the factors driving this, Victor, is exactly what you said. There's a lot of uncertainty. Will there be a second wave of COVID? Are airfares going to be cheaper or more expensive because capacity is reduced? When will capacity return at such levels that airfares, will be competitive again? And again, they may be competitive, but travelers don't know the answers to that yet. Folks like us on this call, we're sort of all monitoring those things, so we have a sense of what's happening with airfares, but consumers are a little bit more in the dark about what they'll look like. And cancellation policies, understanding those, communicating those upfront so that it drives consumer confidence will be really helpful in shrinking those lead times. But as we talked about, we're seeing active engagement and search for Thailand now, but it is for that fall timeframe and forward.
So speaking about cancellations, Stephen, do you see a clear sign that suppliers on the Tripadvisor from different destinations are actually easing in some way their cancellation or refund policies? So people have more flexibility as they book, and in case if they need to do the last minute cancellation, they can have a peace of mind knowing that they can book now, but they can cancel pretty much right before the travel in case if there is something wrong with the destination where they're going, or additional restrictions are coming into place.
Yeah, not only are they loosening those cancellation policies, but they're promoting them much more than they did previously. So cancellation policies typically have been, the fine print at the bottom of a website. You'd have to search very hard through an email confirmation to find them. And what we're seeing is businesses are putting those much more at the forefront of their communications. We're also in the process of adding some new details around business listings on Tripadvisor that will highlight their COVID cleanliness programs, their cancellation policies, and some of these big burning issues that travelers have. And it will, again, give them that confidence to go ahead and book.
Okay, sounds great. So yeah, let's move on. Let's take another question as we still have a bit of time. I can see the other popular questions that we have at this time. As we're waiting for the questions to pop up, so do you, in terms of the North American market, again, specifically Canada, United States, do you see, we have okay, no, it's the same question. Do you see a trend? Okay, can our team please show us some other questions? Thank you.
There we go.
So the next question I see here, what are the most common FAQs on the new normal? What are travelers expecting suppliers to provide or assure them? The number one thing that we see is around policies for cleanliness and sanitation. Cancellation policies probably ranks number 2. And then third is sort of what the requirements will be for travelers themselves, as well as other guests or visitors. One of the things that we're beginning to see here in the US actually are more attractions and experiences beginning to survey travelers to understand what are their expectations that need to be met in order for them to come back. So things like, will they be required to will all visitors be required to wear face masks? Will personnel on site be required to wear face masks? Will social distancing be enforced in some form or fashion? And so those are the kinds of things, again, that I think as a business provider, thinking about what your approach is going to be, and then really sort of publishing that clearly in a place on your owned media channels, whether that's your website or your social channels, in email confirmations or marketing that you're doing. Carol, anything to add there?
Yeah, the next question is, do you have any info on trend changes for Thailand or Asia? Changes in demo, psychographic, changes in length of stay or purpose?
Do you want me to take that, Carol?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so what we are seeing is that younger generations, particularly Gen Z and millennials without kids, are consistently responding more aggressively about their plans to get out there and travel, and to travel further distances. So depending on what you have been targeting for your own particular region within Thailand or your own business within Thailand, thinking younger, at least initially, will probably be advantageous. Carol said during her comments that the targeting approach that you use is going to need to differ and need to change. And this is one of the areas where we see that happening. The other thing is that we have seen, not on Tripadvisor, but on other platforms and sites, that there is some backlash to travel messaging. So it's really critical that you align your messaging with the channels where travelers are most open to hearing travel messaging. And that can be done through the channel, or it can be done through the audience that you're targeting. Another thing I'd love to revisit that Carol mentioned that applies here as well is thinking about who your past visitors are. Often these can be our most loyal guests, whether that is either coming back themselves or sharing those experiences to bring new travelers in, their friends, extended family. So both thinking younger, but also thinking about past guests as potential recurring guests or brand champions that can help spread the word.
And to add to that, specifically and tactically, if you have an e-newsletter list or you have a database that you can access through your partners, we highly encourage that. That is the first and the best place to start. We also know that there are financial restraints at this point in time in terms of paid marketing. However, if you have those assets within your business or within Thailand itself that you can share, those particular previous customer lists or guests are the best place to start.
Okay, just to add to this question, so I remember during your presentation you mentioned that the beach destinations are quite trending right now in terms of how consumers are searching for experiences. But speaking about the product quality, saying whether it's luxury or moderate price or budget economy travel, what do you think would be a first recovered product for North American markets? Because you mentioned younger population to start traveling first. Some people are concerned that they might be affected financially in some point, and with the crisis, of course. And we don't know if they have enough savings, if they are able to, start spending on the travel again. But going into the product level, I think that would also be interesting for our audience because they do represent different segments of the industry and the product quality.
So let me take that. In the English language, in any language, there are many definitions, and definitions can take on a personal identity as well, in that luxury to one person may mean a different luxury to another person, just depending on where you're at. So I think it's very important to realize those differences, but also I think the common overlaying factor here is that people want to get out and get away. And it's those destinations that appear to be, socially correct in terms of distancing, that have the outdoors, but also have that relaxation, may be the one place to start. And then you can actually take your exact messaging and packages and gear it towards specific targeting so you can send the right message to the right audience. So for instance, if you have a millennial audience, you may want to put millennials in your actual images or pictures. If you have something that's very, very luxurious that is for a different economic level, find those means where you can reach and target those people with those specific economic factors.
Victor looks like he might be frozen on my side.
Yeah, the changes in length of stay and purpose were also the second portion of that. Unsure if.
Yeah, I don't know that we've seen anything in our data at this point that suggests changes in length of stay or in fact in purpose. But I do think to sort of the beginning of Victor's question, it was there are opportunities among those budget travelers and among luxury travelers both. The things that we see in data currently suggest that that travelers, first of all, view their financial situation potentially better than it may actually be. So this is one of those places to watch. 6 out of 10 in a recent survey of US travelers indicated that they are not concerned about their financial situation. And it's important that a stat to be aware of is that only 50% of Americans take a trip that involves an overnight stay. So already that focus on your prospective visitor is narrowed significantly to a specific set of the population. I do know that that we've lost Victor, but we do thank all of you for joining us today. I know some of you are staying on for the next section, and we appreciate you taking time to join us on your Friday evening. Thank you very much.